History isn't just a list of facts, it's a living narrative, constantly shaped and reshaped by those who tell it. The past is not a static record, but a collection of memories, interpretations, and omissions woven together into a story that makes sense to us in the present. It's shaped by what we remember, the images and moments we choose to preserve, and the voices we allow to be heard. But just as importantly, it's shaped by what we forget, those details that fade away, or are deliberately left out. And then there's what's hidden, the stories locked away in archives, the documents marked classified, the footage never shown to the public. These absences are not accidental. They are choices, made by people in power, to shape how we see the world. The stories we inherit are often incomplete, crafted to comfort or justify, not to reveal the messy, painful truth. Sometimes, these narratives are designed to protect national pride or to avoid confronting uncomfortable realities. When details are suppressed, our understanding becomes distorted, a sanitized version replaces reality, the official record becomes a carefully edited script, and the real human cost is pushed to the margins. To truly understand the past, we must seek out what was hidden and ask why. We must question the official story, dig into the archives, and listen for the voices that were silenced. Nowhere is this more evident than in the story of the atomic bombings of Japan. Here, the gap between what was shown and what was concealed is vast, and the consequences of that gap are still felt today. The accepted narrative is one of military necessity and swift resolution, a story told to justify an unprecedented act, and to bring closure to a devastating war. But beneath that, locked away for decades, was a more complex story, captured on film, then hidden from the world. The images that could have changed public perception were kept out of sight, their power contained by secrecy. This is the story of how controlling images became a way to control history itself, a reminder that the truth is often more complicated and more human than the stories we are told. The official story of August 1945 is one of decisive action, a moment when the world seemed to pivot on a single, irreversible decision. In the halls of power, leaders weighed the fate of millions, convinced that only a dramatic intervention could bring the war to a close. The atomic bombs were dropped, with the stated aim of ending the war swiftly, and, as officials claimed, saving countless lives that would have been lost in a drawn-out invasion. The Enola Gay's mission was presented as a necessary evil, a calculated strike to force surrender. The U.S. faced the grim prospect of a costly invasion of Japan's home islands. Military planners estimated hundreds of thousands of casualties on both sides. Against this backdrop, the bomb was seen as a terrible but effective alternative, a way to avoid even greater bloodshed, but the reality on the ground was catastrophic. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were reduced to ashes in seconds, their cityscapes transformed into wastelands. Tens of thousands perished instantly, and many more would suffer in the days and years that followed. Japan's surrender soon followed. Across the world, people celebrated the end of a long and brutal conflict. The bombings were quickly framed as the necessary price of peace, a tragic but justified act that brought about victory and saved lives. This narrative, echoed by government officials and amplified by the media, focused on strategy, triumph, and the dawn of a new era. The complexities and consequences were often left unspoken, overshadowed by the rhetoric of necessity. The mushroom cloud became the enduring symbol of this moment, immense, awe-inspiring, and strangely abstract. It represented power and victory, but also served to distance the public from the human cost beneath its shadow. What was left out of the story was the reality on the ground, the suffering, the chaos, and the unimaginable loss experienced by survivors. Beneath those clouds, lives were shattered in an instant. The public saw only flattened cities and distant devastation, rarely the faces or voices of the victims themselves. The true human impact was hidden from view. The story was told from 30,000 feet, strategic, detached, and sanitized. The suffering on the ground was reduced to statistics and distant images. Through censorship and careful messaging, the true cost of the bombings was kept at a distance, leaving the world to grapple with a narrative shaped more by necessity than by the full reality of what had occurred. After the bombings, 2 film crews, Japanese and American, rushed to document the devastation. The Japanese filmed with a sense of duty, capturing ruined landscapes and the suffering of survivors. The Americans arrived with equipment and a mandate to record everything from structural damage to medical effects. Both teams, sometimes filming side by side, created a vast archive of the atomic aftermath. The footage showed not just destruction, but the emergence of a new, mysterious sickness. Eventually, American authorities seized the Japanese footage and combined it with their own. Together, they produced a comprehensive, harrowing visual record. But this story, the full, uncensored reality, was not meant for public eyes. It was locked away, hidden from the world. The footage was raw and unflinching, moving through the ruins at street level. It showed not just debris, but personal belongings, reminders of lives erased in an instant. Most haunting were the images of survivors, skin melted, clothing patterns burned into flesh, bewildered faces searching for loved ones. The cameras documented the first cases of radiation sickness, fevers, hair loss, bodies breaking down from within. Doctors spoke of confusion and helplessness. The film captured not just immediate violence, but the slow, insidious lethality of radiation. These images were the most powerful anti-nuclear statement ever created. Authorities soon decided the world must not see them. Once in American hands, the footage was classified as secret and locked away. The human story of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was deemed too dangerous for public consumption. In the Cold War climate, the bomb symbolized American power. Images of suffering threatened that narrative. Like the Japanese filmmakers lost control of their work. It became a state secret. Suppression wasn't just about hiding graphic images, it was about shaping global understanding. The government promoted sanitized images. Mushroom clouds, not burned children. Journalists were silenced, and the official story focused on military success. For nearly 30 years, the most direct evidence of the bomb's human cost was hidden. History was written with crucial witnesses erased. The victims' images were locked away. The mushroom cloud became the dominant symbol, immense, abstract, strangely beautiful. It was an image that seemed to rise above the world, detached from the chaos and devastation below. The sheer scale of the cloud, billowing into the sky, captured the imagination of millions and quickly became the visual shorthand for the atomic age. It was a spectacle that both fascinated and terrified, a symbol that could be admired from a distance without confronting the reality it represented. This image allowed the bomb to be discussed in terms of power and strategy, not human suffering. Military leaders and politicians could talk about megatons, blast radii, and geopolitical leverage, while the public saw only the awesome force of the explosion. The mushroom cloud became a way to talk about victory, deterrence, and national security, rather than the lives lost or the cities destroyed. This psychological distance made nuclear war seem almost thinkable. By focusing on the abstract, the unimaginable became a matter of calculation and policy. The horror was sanitized, made manageable, and even rationalized as necessary. But the hidden footage told the opposite story. Specific, painful, human. It revealed the suffering that was left out of official reports and newsreels. The devastation was not just a matter of destroyed buildings, but of shattered lives and families. A burned body is not a concept. It is a person with a name, a history, and a family. The wounds were not theoretical. They were real, and they lingered long after the smoke had cleared. A child crying is not a strategic asset. It is a reminder of innocence lost, of futures stolen in an instant. These images forced viewers to confront the true cost of the bomb, beyond the language of strategy and power. The footage forced a moral confrontation with the consequences of nuclear weapons. It demanded empathy, and it made it impossible to ignore the suffering that had been hidden from view. That's why it was suppressed. It could shift the conversation from power to humanity. Authorities feared that if the public saw the real aftermath, the narrative of necessity and triumph would be challenged, and uncomfortable questions would be asked. By showing the cloud and hiding the bodies, authorities managed the narrative. They controlled what people saw and therefore what people thought and felt about the bomb. The public got the symbol of power, but not its cost. The spectacle was broadcast, but the suffering was kept in the shadows, out of sight and out of mind. Debate was neutered, history written with its most human chapter torn out. the official story became one of progress and victory, not of loss and grief. The story remained technically true, but emotionally incomplete. Without the faces, the voices, and the pain, the narrative was hollow, a record of events stripped of the humanity that gives history its meaning. For decades, the footage remained hidden, but stories this powerful don't stay buried forever. Japanese activists and survivors fought for its release, insisting it belonged to humanity. In 1970, some footage was declassified and shown in a documentary. Audiences saw, for the first time, the human victims, images so graphic, many stations refused to air them. For those who watched, the effect was transformative. The clean, strategic narrative shattered. Nuclear war now had a human face. The footage fueled anti-nuclear movements and protests. The Hibakusha's images became as iconic as the mushroom cloud. The resurfacing forced a more complex reckoning with the bomb's legacy. Survivors' testimony finally became part of the historical record. The story of the lost footage reveals how history is shaped by what we see, and what we're prevented from seeing. By classifying the footage, the US government constructed a preferred narrative, justifying past actions and future policies. Images aren't neutral, they carry emotional and political weight. A mushroom cloud inspires awe. A child with radiation sickness inspires horror. Authorities guide public opinion by choosing which images to show. The suppression of Hiroshima's footage is a stark example of information control. This isn't unique. History is often curated by those in power. The empty spaces and hidden images matter as much as what's displayed. The rediscovery of the footage reminds us. The official story is rarely the whole story. Truth often lies buried, waiting to be uncovered. To see the once-hidden footage is to realize the past is never truly past. These images force a moral reckoning, changing how we see the bomb in modern warfare. Historical understanding evolves as new evidence emerges, especially what was once hidden. Sanitized narratives keep us innocent, but dangerously so. True knowledge requires courage, to look at what's painful and question what we've been told. The images from Hiroshima and Nagasaki are both a warning and a testament to human resilience. By uncovering them, we reclaim our history and its deepest truths. The journey of this footage is a parable seeing can challenge authority and reshape memory, reminding us to seek out the hidden stories and never let history's most important parts be locked away again.